Hello. My name is Thomas Lennerfors. I work at Uppsala University, the Department of Engineering Sciences and Division of Industrial Management and Innovation. I'm really happy to see so many of you here, and I'm really glad to be invited to give a talk about a cross-continent, collaborative, interdisciplinary, case-based course on technology and sustainable development. And those are issues that I care very much about. I've done a lot of research on ethics and philosophy of business and technologies. This course really goes hand in hand with my research interests. And actually on this image here, you can see just a snapshot from the course that we delivered in 2016. Here we have me, here we have Professor Jonathan Woodward, here we have students at the Tokyo campus, and here we have a video-linked screen with Uppsala University, and here are the students of Uppsala. But let's go to the next slide. So, and just for your information, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we contextualize this course, because of course on the one hand it's great to have developed a course in practice that works and so on, but we felt that there is more to this and that we want to tell others about what we have done and the outcomes of it. So we think that we could frame these initiatives that we have done within two scholarly debates within education research. And one is of course education for sustainability. And the question is, in that field, is how does one do to educate for sustainability? We know that there are a lot of sustainability challenges in the world, and that this will be defining for the upcoming decades. But how does one foster this in a new generation of students? And it's a particular kind of subject. The point with sustainability education is not just to learn about sustainability, but it's also to foster the motivation to work for sustainability. And how do we do that? And the second thing is, how can we foster critical thinking about sustainability? Because we all know that sustainability is not one thing. It is not limited to environmental issues only. It is not limited to global warming only, although global warming of course plays a very significant role within this debate, but often it's this mix of social issues, environmental issues and economic issues that we have in mind when we talk about sustainability. Furthermore, within sustainability courses, there is often the concern about how we can work together to solve these sustainability challenges, because the point is not to find this brilliant solution in the mind of a scientist which can solve all the issues, but it's also that this needs to be implemented on a global basis, and to do that we need to foster collaborative skills and mindsets between people in different places. Second, we have realized that there is a domain, scholarly domain about virtual exchange, which basically means that you go on exchange without doing the physical travel. And this is supposed to counter the tendency that not enough students in Japan, in Sweden, go to do exchange studies in other countries. So therefore, through virtual exchange, we can attend the courses of other universities through internet and thereby have an exchange while we are not, although we are not traveling. So this course kind of contributes to that debate as well. But how did it all start? The background was when I had a teaching sabbatical in the fall of 2014. And the point of the teaching sabbatical was to go to another university not as a researcher, not as a guest researcher, but as a teacher. And teach together with the faculty in the host university and to kind of, visit that university as a teacher and not as a researcher. So I delivered two courses on ethics and sustainability, and also participated in a lot of faculty development discussions. We had this weekly lunch, which was organized by Jonathan Woodward. And after this stay, I drew some observations about the PEAK programs which I was visiting. So these are the programs in English at Komaba. And my personal view of these programs was that PEAK could benefit more from more knowledge integration, because there was a lot of excellent courses, but I didn't see many of those courses which integrated the knowledge from these different domains. Also, I saw that some PEAK students were struggling with the processes of working together with others outside the classroom. Within the classroom, it was no problem, but outside the classroom, they had difficulties in finding the right ways to work together. When I went to this teaching sabbatical, I already knew that I was going to be the program director of MILI, which is a Master in Industrial Management and Innovation at Uppsala University. So I had that program in mind, so to speak, when I was in Tokyo. And what I wanted to do with that program was to internationalize it. It was a Swedish program taught in Swedish, so for Swedish-speaking students. Also, it was a program which was quite centered on the standard dimensions of industrial management, which is profitability, so develop new innovations which lead to profitability. But I wanted to integrate other values into the education, because these values are also more increasingly appreciated and have a central importance in business life. So these are sustainability issues and ethics issues. Also, after the stay at Tokyo, I realized that I really wanted to have MILI students work together with the highly motivated students from the PEAK program. So luckily, I was asked by GFD, the faculty development, to have another stay at University of Tokyo just 2 months after I left in January. So during the month of March, we continued the discussions and had various seminars and so on. And one seminar I had was about interinstitutional education in the internet age. So basically, this how we can virtual exchange, right? So how we can draw on the teaching staff in various countries to give a better curriculum for our students and promote these connections. And we said that, hey, why don't we try something in practice? I mean, we could actually make this work. We wanted to make something low cost, so we wanted to rely on the idea of virtual exchange, although we didn't know that it was called virtual exchange at this moment. To make it low cost, we didn't want students to travel because we knew that this would lead to very good outcome the first year, but then when the funding would go away, then we would have nothing. Then, given our interests and also the different disciplines of the students in the different universities, we thought that sustainability was a good topic, as it is interdisciplinary in itself, and through the study of sustainability we could really draw on the competencies of the different student groups. So it was possible then in 2015 or so to create this new course, both at Uppsala University and University of Tokyo. And we shouldn't downplay here the importance of both me and Johnny having roles within the academic hierarchy, so to speak. So we could actually push for change and push for the institution of this course. And it would, me as a program director, could actually push for this at Uppsala University, for example. So this is maybe not a prerequisite, but it makes things easier. So this was a table that we did when analyzing the situation that we were confronted with, the different complementarities, the different challenges, and the different opportunities, of course, that when doing this kind of joint course. And we saw that the major was different of the University of Tokyo and Uppsala University, University of Tokyo, we had liberal arts students in mind, environmental sciences and social sciences. At Uppsala University, we had those with a bachelor in engineering who were moving towards a more managerial role, and therefore they took this master program. So we thought that we could benefit from this because of the diversity of the knowledge base to solve sustainability issues. So this combined the natural sciences, social sciences, engineering, and business. Then we had a difference also of the level of studies, undergraduate and graduate. So there was a diversity of stages and ages. And we thought that to truly benefit from this difference and not make it become an obstacle, we thought that it was a good idea to have this kind of case-based, problem-based learning approach where each of the students can contribute with what they know, what they can. Then we had different cultural backgrounds, predominantly Asian students at University of Tokyo, and in 2016, as I said, the Uppsala University program was a Swedish-speaking program. But here we also had different perspectives based on the upbringing, cultural education and the knowledge of the different students, and not the least because these students are situated in different countries, so they could have access to different local contexts when discussing the various cases. For example, when we had an IKEA case, and there the students could, for example, see how IKEA was perceived in terms of sustainability in the Swedish market amongst friends and so on, and also in the Japanese market. So this embodied knowledge of having access to various countries directly, so to speak, could be beneficial, we thought. The involved teacher, Jonathan Woodward, is a chemist. I have a background in industrial management and ethics and sustainability. So we thought that with these complementary skills, we could also tackle sustainability issues in different ways, and we tried to pick cases that were suitable to our profiles as well. Time zone issues, always a problem when we do these East-West courses, but we managed to find the perfect time. 9:50 a.m., not too early for the Swedes, and 4:50 p.m. Not too late for the PEAK students. There's a four-term system in both Tokyo and Uppsala, but still only one term works optimally. So we put the course there, so April, May. And also in each university, the number of courses taken simultaneously differ. So at University of Tokyo, they take about 15 courses at the same time. While at Uppsala take 3 courses. So we did this course a 2-credit course, so equaling 2 normal courses, and probably it is pretty high workload course in Japan, and in the first year of implementation we thought that this would be a kind of light course in Sweden. So the course, formerly called Managing Sustainability in Global Industrial Companies, is structured like this, as you can see in the slide. We have a theoretical introduction to sustainability, and here we try to give them some theoretical tools. We discuss the concept of shared value, which basically sees sustainability challenges as not an obstacle in the operations of a company, but rather as opportunities. So basically the idea is that we can solve social issues and make a profit at the same time, or rather make a profit by solving social issue, or make a profit by solving environmental issues. However, there are critiques to this because as we can easily imagine, regarding some issues there are synergies between the economic and the environmental or social, but regarding other issues there are not. For example, one famous synergy is these flat packages from IKEA, right? So you ship furniture in these flat packages and they are assembled by the customer, and doing this you can reduce the volume of the cargo so lower the impact of transport, you lower the packaging costs, and packaging material, thereby reducing environmental impact, and you also make it more profitable. So that could be a synergy. But there are also many other issues where there are conflicts, where increased environmental performance leads to higher costs. Okay. So, but we didn't want to give them too much of this, because we wanted to leverage on this problem-based learning approach, where the students would pull knowledge rather than that we as teachers push knowledge to them. So these are the different case studies that we chose in the course. A case about Nike, we have a case about Intel and conflict minerals, have a case about Royal Caribbean, which is a company which owns these kinds of ships, so large cruise ships, right? Have a case about the pharma company Pfizer and their pursuit of reducing the environmental impact of their chemical processes, something which is sometimes called green chemistry. And here we really thought with this case study that we could leverage the resources of Jonathan Woodward, right? Because he has direct experience and knowledge about this. And IKEA, that's the Swedish furniture company. Here we chose to discuss responsible wood sourcing, so because they are an immensely big procurer of wood materials, and how can they deal with this? Should they own forest, lease forest, or make less wood-intensive products? We had a midterm seminar and a final reflective seminar. So maybe some of you were moving around uncomfortably in your chairs when I said that we are building on the case study approach, because as we all know, this has been problematized, because sometimes these cases are seen as, propaganda, that this is a way of marketing for the companies that are involved. And we said that relating to education for sustainability, that we wanted to promote the critical thinking of the students. So how is this combined? In this course, we try to make the students solve the cases, but not just solve the cases, but they have to think outside the case and problematize the case at the same time. So it's never just to take the case as given and then solve it, but they always have to think beyond the case. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we expand the empirical knowledge about the case. So by studying various sources of data, students can get a more nuanced understanding of sustainability. And these various sources of data are perhaps critical documentaries about the same issues. They are about updating the case studies by studying new sustainability reports of the companies. It is about studying newspaper articles about these companies, journalistic reports, and so on. And also something which I like, which is the historical contextualization. And this basically means that we should expand the scope somewhat from what is described in the case. In the case, sometimes it is written that the last 5 years the profitability was this, and the turnover was this, and the sustainability performance was this. But if you expand this to about 10 years or 15 years, then you can see more long-term trends, which also gives another understanding to the case studies. Because as we know, sometimes the company like to portray themselves in the most positive way. So if they chose to only show the 5 last years, then it might be the case that these 5 last years have a positive trend or something like that. It is also important for promoting critical thinking that we generalize to and compare with other companies. So rather than just seeing the company that the case study is about, so the companies I listed in the previous slides, like IKEA, Pfizer, and Royal Caribbean, we look at their competitors as well. So, and this problematizes any success story of the case companies, because when we look at material about the competitors, we realize that they also produce these kinds of more or less success stories, and then the students need to think, okay, can all companies be the most successful in the industry? Something must be problematic here. We perhaps need to think and weigh these facts that the companies draw on or produce against each other to see, to understand more about sustainability in these particular industries. Also, it is important that they see the synergies and conflict in the concept of sustainability, so within these different dimensions, which I talked about, because sometimes it is really the case that we produce shared value. We solve an environmental issues and we make profit from solving that environmental issue. But in some cases it is not the case. And often the companies, they don't talk about the conflicts between these different dimensions, but rather focus on the synergies and the win-win situations. So the students need to be able to identify these conflicts. Also, we think that working together with others with a different knowledge base, experience and access to local context, which we actually do with these students, that is in itself a way to problematize the case and see it from different dimensions. So if the Swedish students see how the PEAK students approach the case, they would, but through this process, get a novel understanding of the case. Let's turn to an example of how this approach was implemented. So we take the example of Intel and conflict minerals, and here the story is that Intel in say 2009 or 2010 did not care too much about the issue of conflict minerals, and conflict minerals are those minerals that are mined in conflict zones where there are often, human rights abuses, child labor, very poor working conditions. But then Intel got this issue on the table. They had a task force about conflict minerals. They started to implement change within the organization, and some years later they could proudly present a new series of processors that were not drawing on any, they were not using any conflict minerals. So they had a slogan saying 100% conflict free. And that all sounds excellent, of course. But then we had the students watch a critical documentary which actually showed that these systems that Intel and other companies are relying on are leaking in themselves. And there's a bag and tag system where you basically, the idea is that you put the minerals in a bag and then you seal the bag and it's not open until it goes to the smelter. So there you can see exactly it's traceable to the mine, but the problem is that that's not how it works. Sometimes the mine are smuggled to another country and they're packed in bags, and sometimes there is a black market of seals, so you can actually cut the bag open, put another seal on it and make it seem that this is not a conflict mineral. So then the students need to think, what is said in this documentary and how does that affect Intel's strategy and their claim to be 100% conflict free? Well, it does have an impact, right? Then we do a comparison with other companies who also face the same issue of conflict minerals. So with Apple, Fairphone, processor manufacturer AMD, some Japanese companies, for example Nintendo, and some Swedish companies. And each group of students perhaps take one of these companies so they can tell each other about one company that they are specialists on. And then the final point is to suggest Intel's future strategy on conflict minerals. The implementation in 2016 was like this. We had 15 students at the University of Tokyo and 13 students at Uppsala University. And this was an excellent balance. But I had a slight concern, or quite a grave concern, that 13 students at Uppsala would be enough for this round. But if the interest in this course would just be 13 students for the upcoming years, then we would run the risk of this course being shut down because of economic issues. So I had an idea that we needed to increase the student numbers. In this class, we divided the students into 4 large groups, each comprising 2 to 4 students from each campus. So there were these cross-campus groups where all of these different resources were put together, right? The philosophy was to do group work out of class, and in the class we had a presentation and discussion. And outside the class, we had an increasing degree of collaboration. So the first point was just to work in the same Google Docs. Okay, so we started with a cautious approach because we didn't want to put off the student, make them scared or feel uncomfortable. So basically the idea was the Swedish student did their thing, the Japanese students did their thing, but they did it in one and the same shared Google Docs. Then in the second assignment, in the second case study, they divided the work themselves. In the third study, we encouraged them to make a strategic plan together for the company, right? That they really had to work together to make that strategic plan. In the fourth case study, we did these cross-campus sub-teams. So if one group, say, consists of 6 students, 3 from Tokyo and 3 from Uppsala, then we created 3 sub-teams with 1 student from each campus. And each of these sub-teams needed to reply to 1 question, one part of the assignment. And this was pretty nice because then they could work cross-campus in small teams where actually they couldn't kind of, hide, or it was really one-to-one. And this created good relationships between those students in the sub-teams at least. And then for the final case study, they did all the work together. And one can of course problematize and say how do we know that they worked together? Perhaps they just divided the work. But I think that in this course round that actually had the time, and because of these things we had done with the group work, this increasing degree of collaboration, I think they worked together with solving the final case, which was the IKEA case. In class, they presented and discussed. We had a video-linked classroom, Polycom equipment. And it might be interesting to comment a little bit about the teacher dynamics, because as we said in the slide with the big table, that we teachers had different skills and different knowledge. So I took the role as a moderator, because I had the knowledge of industrial management, also of sustainability and ethics. So I took this role as a moderator, trying to connect to the theory, try to make the students connect to the concepts in the shared value article, and so on. Johnny, on the other hand, often did not take the role as a chemist, but he took the role as an intervener. So in simple words, Johnny likes to say that he is the guy who asks the stupid questions. Of course, they are not stupid, but they are questions that are asked from a knowledgeable person who does not particularly have a full control of the course material, right? So it's these questions that an observer would ask and put into the debate. And this is the role of the intervener. So Johnny created these jolts, these kind of bursts of inspiration into the debate, which made it take unexpected ways, and that was really, really interesting both for the students and I think for us as teachers as well. So also within the teaching team, we tried to think a little bit about what can our roles be. Also, we invited corporate representatives, and the Uppsala students, they really like corporate representatives. But I think that we at Uppsala University, sometimes we use them in the wrong way, the representatives, right? So rather than, usually we just say, could you please come and give a guest lecture? And then they come, And then perhaps it takes a long time for them to explain what their company has done, some general information, and then perhaps they tell a little bit about what they have done, and then that's the end of the guest lecture. There's some time for questions. But I wanted to use the corporate representatives in a different way, and what I think is a better way. And that is that the corporate representatives were invited to listen to the students' solutions to a case which affects their industry, and give their opinion about those solutions. So once again, we pulled the resources from the corporate representatives rather than having the corporate reps push their knowledge into the course. In this first year, we had 2 corporate reps. One was related to the Royal Caribbean case, and this was a retired chairperson of a smaller cruise company which operates 2 ships. So he could both talk about the strategies of the big dragons, so Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruises, but he could also say what sustainability challenges are affecting a smaller cruise line. Also, we had a representative from Pfizer who was one of the persons who were interviewed in this case material that we studied for the Pfizer case. So he was really a central person. So he could give an embodied perspective of what was written in the case study, and also say some things that cannot be put in writing but can be said to a student population. The course evaluation 2016 showed that the students were very happy. They liked the cases, they liked the collaboration between the universities, and they liked the multitude of perspectives. They had experienced collaboration issues. Some students were unresponsive, they were busy with other courses. It was difficult to find a time where they could Skype because of the time differences and different agendas and different kind of commitment to studies and so on. From the teacher's perspective, we thought that this was a very nice experience, intense, kind of interesting in a way, that you try to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and do something that because you want to do it and feel the passion of that. However, we thought that sometimes the students were not critical enough. Perhaps we didn't explain to them that one of the meanings of doing the comparisons and the meaning of expanding the data was actually to promote their critical thinking. But sometimes the students just relied on the case information and tried to devise a solution to the case rather than problematizing it. Also, we thought that we could work more with group dynamics to not just say to the students that, hey, you should be able to work in groups, but also give them tools for that. So in 2017, I was on another leave, so I couldn't teach this course, so we decided to postpone it to 2018. In order to solve the issue of the students not being critical enough, so to speak, we added some more critical perspectives. One of them was that the students, together with the shared value materials, they had to study or look at the 2003 movie The Corporation, which is a documentary. It is presenting corporations in not such a positive light and say that it is an institutional problem that corporations are profit maximizing and somewhat or significantly short-sighted. And this is of course not to show the truth about the world and that the students should think that corporations are like psychopaths, but the point is to show that this is also a discourse in today's society, and they have to deal with that discourse as well, and they need to be able to see things also from that perspective and not just from the positive perspective that corporations are the leaders in the change towards a more sustainable society. We also added a solid group dynamic base, which consisted of a group contract, some role exercises to see whether the group members were complementing each other and whether some competencies were missing from the group and so on, and how the group could compensate for that. We also drew significantly on Susan Whelan's work. She's an expert of group dynamic processes, and we followed her model where groups tend to mature, hopefully, from less functional to more functional, and how we could kind of support this development process. We also added a midterm individual mini project, but more importantly, there was a new teacher who came to the course, Isabelle Giraudot, and she joined and added legal perspective, because she's a legal scholar with a focus on environmental law and expertise in environmental law. So this was really interesting to see this new perspective on the cases, because the legal dimensions, they are always in the cases, but they are never made explicit, and it was really interesting to have a person who whom the students could discuss this with seriously. We also developed a pool of materials to let students pull more info. For example, I did 2 interviews with islanders, so people living on islands, smaller islands, where these cruise companies, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and so on, try to establish bases. So we heard that their perspectives of these cruise companies were less positive than what is written in the cruise companies' sustainability report about how they collaborate with the local inhabitants of the islands where they go to. So that was also perhaps interesting for the students to see that all stakeholders do not agree about what is a sustainable operation. We added lectures by Isabelle on legal perspectives, and we invited 2 more corporate representatives. The Forest Stewardship Council, I think if you open any book that you have close to you right now, you will see a Forest Stewardship Council logo on it, which means that the paper is produced from natural resources that are mined, that are harvested in a sustainable way. And Atea, which is a Nordic IT company. Then we also had a new student population in the class, and those are the SINRAM students. They are sustainable and innovative natural resource management students, and they know about natural resources, recycling, extractions of mineral from waste, raw materials value chain, and circular economy. So they could add this kind of more science perspective on the solving of these cases. This is a program which is collaborative between European universities, of which Uppsala is one, and they wanted to have this course in their curriculum. So we had 6 students in 2018. We also received some funding from Stint, the organization which funded my teaching sabbatical, to travel, so that we could meet each other, Johnny, Isabelle, and I. In 2018, we had 13 students at Uppsala, at the University of Tokyo, and 50 students at Uppsala University. So it's significantly more students than we had in the beginning, which on the one hand is good, because this leads to sustainability of the course, because the course will keep existing. But on the other hand, this is a problem for the implementation. So when we do these educational projects, it is always the case that we have these kind of issues of a more practical character. We have the philosophy, right, of promoting critical thinking, teaching people to work together, and so on. But we also have these practical issues, and we have to solve this in some way. And the way we did was actually to create 10 Uppsala University groups and 5 University of Tokyo groups. So each group in Uppsala worked together with one Tokyo group for 2 weeks. Okay, so a different way to do it would be that the groups work together for the entire course, but then it would be about 1 student in Tokyo and 5 students in Uppsala in each group. And we thought that this would be a bit alienating for the Tokyo students student to be alone in a group of other Uppsala students, so we decided that this other option would be better. Otherwise, we did it basically in the same way as before, with the big difference that we changed room to a bigger auditorium. But we managed to fit all the Uppsala students on the screen. But as you can imagine, the kind of cozy atmosphere that we had in the first round, we couldn't achieve this in this second round. But still, there was a good debate. We put more emphasis on having a presenter group and a discussant group. So actually, those groups in total were about 10-15 students, and they were doing the main debate between Tokyo and Uppsala, and the other students kind of complemented this debate by asking questions and also engaging. So it was not 50 students talking to 15 students, but perhaps it was a core group of 10-15 students that were discussing, and the other came into the debate, so to speak. Student evaluations. Once again, it was very positive evaluation, I would say. The collaboration in Tokyo, they liked it. They liked the development of critical thinking, because this time I think we pushed this message even harder, and we made it more explicit, and then they got the point. So they realized that this was an explicit goal of the course. They liked the cases, and they thought it was interesting to have the corporate representatives. On the downside was that it was too much work, too little theory, and no time to think about group dynamics or collaboration issues, because they were stressing to make the solutions to the cases, get them in order. From the teacher's perspective, I thought it was a good outcome with new material, more guests, and a new legal perspectives. But once again, was too much work for the students, which leads to less time for deep thought, and the students did not pull enough info. So for example, some of the videos I created, it was not obvious that all students had actually seen those videos. So I think the reason is that they were too stressed. We had filled the course with too much content. So course implementation in 2019, actually, as I said, the course starts this week. It started yesterday, actually, but now is Monday in Sweden. It starts Thursday this week. And there are new teachers at Uppsala University. It's Per Fors, who is a newly become doctor, and Matthew Davis, who is a PhD student. And we don't know how many students we will have at University of Tokyo, but we know that we will have 100+ students at Uppsala University. Yes, I can hear you're gasping for air right now, right? And we need to solve this in some way. And this way, we decided to do like this, that we divide the Swedish student population into 5 seminar groups, and one of these seminar groups collaborates with the University of Tokyo students, and the other ones collaborate between the Mealy students and the Sinram students, so basically between the industrial management students and the more natural resource students. So all the students who enter this course will have some kind of cross-disciplinary experience, but one of the groups, so about 20 students, will do the collaboration with the University of Tokyo. So let's move on to some summarizing thoughts. So this course, we think, promote critical thinking and create possibilities for global joint solution to sustainability issues through data expansion, through comparing companies, through seeing sustainability conflicts and synergies, but also through working together with others. To the virtual exchange debate, perhaps it can give the idea that sustainability is a good topic for virtual exchange, because we truly leverage the resources of the different student populations and also the different teachers. So rather than only consuming courses in other places, this course uses the knowledge and experiences of all students. And perhaps what we are really doing, and which we argued in an article that was published not long ago, is that we foster a community of inquiry, a new community of inquiry, which goes beyond the silo thinking of the university, which goes beyond the departments in both local and in international contexts, which goes beyond the traditional student identities that I'm an environmental science student or I'm an industrial management student. And in this course, we hope that we can create this new community of inquiry between the students. But something we also do, I think, is that we create this new community of inquiry amongst the teachers as well, because through working with Isabel and Johnny, I have had to think more about my positions within the sustainability debate. I've tried to rethink my perspectives on what natural sciences is and chemistry is and legal studies is. So I believe that here also we can find a common ground to talk about sustainability that goes beyond our departmental belongings. So perhaps that is what we're doing, fostering a new community of inquiry. Thank you for your attention.